Dr. Lazare ready to get back on the stand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everybody ready to start?
Yes.
Yes, yes, okay. What? Okay. Thank you, Megan. Morning, Dr. Lazare. I'm ready, I think. Morning.
Two questions. Everybody cell phones off? And those are your notepads, correct?
Yes.
Jury's in the jury box and seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody receive any information outside of court about this case? You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
I'd like to go back into your clinical interview of the defendant again.
Okay.
During your interview of the defendant, I know you interviewed him 2 different dates.
Yes.
Was the defendant malingering facts?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a difference between malingering facts and malingering symptoms?
Yes.
Can you explain the difference?
Well, when someone malingers facts, they're just malingering or amplifying or minimizing things that can either make them seem to be positive or negative. So sometimes people will say things magnify good things about themselves and minimize more negative things, or make facts turn around to sort of favor them and put blame on others. And I feel like that happened very regularly in my interview.
And how did that affect your opinion?
Well, just supported what I now think, but at the time I was sort of picking up a pattern.
And when you questioned the defendant, can you tell us about your questioning style? And did that change during the course of your interview?
Well, as I talked to you guys about yesterday, my typical questioning style would be really an open question, because that's how you get the most information. But based upon the fact that I was getting a one-line answer, I had to then be more elaborate about what I was saying, because one of the interviewing techniques that we use is we try to get people to mirror what we're doing. So if I'm just saying one word, I'm expecting that they're probably going to just say one word. But if I then maybe be a little bit more elaborate about my question, then I'm hoping that they'll be a little more elaborate about their answer.
And did that work?
No.
Okay. What was his response style as you became more elaborate with your questions?
Would either be retaliatory or negative, or just very closed. I don't know, I don't remember, I don't recall, why are you asking that? What's the relevance of that question? That kind of thing was what I was getting.
And how did that response style affect your opinion?
Well, it was, again, consistent with what I was thinking, that the facts were being malingered or just not being said, because the easiest way to malinger is to say, I don't know. The easiest way to malinger is to not say anything or to not do anything, because then if you don't say or do anything, it leads people to just question, why are they not saying or doing anything? And that happens a lot, actually. But like I said, it's the easiest way to malinger, because you don't have to make up anything, because the more things that you make up, the more things that you have to remember that you made up. And that's really difficult to do, especially among multiple different interviewers.
Did you ask the defendant about his account of the murder in your interview?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you about that at this time. How did you go about asking him to explain what happened on the bridge?
How I always do, how I ask that question is I usually ask, okay, now we're going to talk about, the murder. I usually do that closer to the end of an interview, because I don't want all of the other interview to be sort of taken over by that, because as you guys can imagine, that's a difficult topic, so then it takes a lot of energy, and it just distracts from the rest of the material. So I usually ask that closer to the end, and that's what I did here. And then I always ask, can you talk to me about the events leading up to it at least 24 hours in advance of when that actually occurred? That's my typical question. And then the immediate response I got to that was, I don't remember what led up to it. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Okay, where did he begin his account of the murder?
What he did was, I asked him, and when he answered me that, I said, well, then tell me what you do remember, because that's the next question that you probably should ask. And then he said that he remembered sending out crazy text messages to people, and that he said that he didn't sleep at all. And I asked him to quantify that, because when you're looking at bipolar disorder, for example, sleep is one of the things that affects it. So it's a question that you would ask. And he said that typically every night he slept 7 to 8 hours, but this night he slept between 4 to 5 hours. So it was a little bit different. And then going on from there, so I asked him, from waking up, then what happened next? And so then, once he got up from sleep, he got Phoebe ready, and I asked him if he was taking her to school, because why is he getting her ready?
Now, are you talking about the morning of the 7th or the morning of the 8th?
This is the morning of the 7th, 24 hours before.
24 before, okay.
This is the morning before. So earlier he said he didn't remember, but then he could start remembering this part. So, I asked him if he was taking her to school, and he said that he was not taking her to school. And then I asked him why, and he said that because of possession, the Bible, and everything like that. So sort of a general thing to say. And then a little bit further, he said also that he was sort of guided by legal advice not to bring her to school, because then her mom would be able to take her from school. So there was a reality-based answer to that question.
Okay. What else did he tell you?
And then we talked about, I sort of went into a little bit about the school issue and her mother, because I didn't really understand that. And he had said, I asked him why was the problem that her mom picked her up from school. I mean, I didn't see that as a problem. And he said Michelle was threatening to take her away.
So did he understand in your interview with him that there was...
Objection, speculation. Overruled.
In your interview with him, did he understand Michelle to be a threat as far as child custody?
Yes, and he talked about that a couple of times. That wasn't the only time, but that was one time, again, as we were talking about the events leading up to the murder.
Okay. And so then did he describe to you going to see the attorney, Genevieve Torres?
Yes. So he said that he, went to the attorney and he gave her $400 of the $500 retainer.
Okay. So what else did he tell you about the attorney in that encounter?
There was a little tangent in the interview, so let me find that part. So then he said that he gave her the $400 and asked her if she could read the Bible. And I asked him why he thought that she could read the Bible. And it made sense to me what he had said. He said, because she's foreign. He also said that she had a speech impediment. That wouldn't say anything, but she was foreign. And, she's blonde. You guys have seen her. And so, I could see why an average person might think that somebody blonde with an accent maybe could be able to read a Swedish text. So I didn't see that as atypical or abnormal. And then I asked him, because I had records from before, so I asked him about having seen this attorney before, and he said he did consult her back in August. So, and I asked him why he didn't pursue that more at that time, and didn't wait and waited until December, and he said Michelle wasn't a threat at that time in August. So again, that was another time when he had said that. So
let me fast forward just a
yes.
little. So did he describe the dinner that he had with the mother, Phoebe, Michelle Kerr, Phoebe, and Michelle Kerr's boyfriend, Guy Kisser, at Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay.
He talked about that. I asked him, the question I asked about that is, I asked him when it was good between he and Michelle. When was it last good between them? And that's when he talked about that. He said in November, Michelle came to see him, and he said he reached out to her for the holidays. She had her son with her, and they had at least at one point talked about reconciling, per John when he's telling me. And then he said on Thanksgiving he decided that he wanted her, Michelle, to be a part of Phoebe's life, and that was sort of what the dinner was about, that they all went, John, Michelle, the kids, and her boyfriend, they went to Denny's to eat dinner.
Now, did you ask him at that point, why he saw the new boyfriend, Guy Kisser, as a threat to custody of Phoebe?
Yes, because Michelle, Phoebe's mom, she had gotten diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, pretty soon after Phoebe had been born, which is not uncommon, actually. So she wasn't able to drive. So she really couldn't get Phoebe. She was able to get her from the daycare, but she really wasn't able to because she couldn't drive. But Guy, her boyfriend, could drive. And that then made it even more of a threat because now she really had some movement or some capability of some movement that she really didn't have before. So that was another factor there that made her to seem to be more of a threat.
All right. And was that information that you received from the defendant during your interview?
Yes.
Did he tell you that this was why he was pursuing custody or perceiving this to be a threat in your interview?
Yes.
Did he say anything? You may have mentioned this, but did he comment to you directly in your interview about the fact that Guy Kisser could drive and that was potentially a problem in terms of losing Phoebe?
Yes.
All right, so I want to fast forward to his account of what happened on the bridge.
Okay.
tell us what he said happened on the bridge.
Just on the bridge or anything right before that? Or just on
We'll
the
come
bridge?
back to some of the other information before that later.
Okay.
At this point, I'd like to talk about the bridge.
Okay.
And his account.
All right. So on the bridge, he said that he had stopped and that Phoebe was awake and that she saw the flashing lights of a police car and said, "Daddy, there's flashing lights." He got out of the car and the police officer was holding a gun when John got out of the car. And John said that he got out and told him, "You have no free will, I do." I asked him what that meant, and John said, "I don't know where that came from." Then he walked around the car, and he said that he felt that everyone was trying to get them, he and Phoebe. He said it was a conspiracy or something. John said that he was hearing voices saying that if he and Phoebe didn't die, that everyone was going to hell. He said he felt that the Bible was telling everyone that he was a creator, and that everyone was going to go to hell. He didn't want anyone else to get hurt.
What else did he tell you?
He reached into his car, pulled Phoebe out. He said, "I held her over the side of the bridge and I dropped her. I took the car and drove away."
Okay. And what did he say about driving away?
I asked him where he was going when he drove away, and he says, "I don't remember."
Did the defendant jump off the bridge?
No.
How does that impact your analysis?
Well, if somebody is severely delusional to the point where they do something that significant to kill someone, and if the delusion is that if both of us don't die, everyone's going to hell, it sort of misses half the both of us. So for me, again, that doesn't go with psychosis or delusion, because delusions, as we talked about yesterday, they can have very severe consequences, like in the example I gave of somebody cutting off a body part. I mean, that's the significant thing, and you can't help yourself from doing that. So if that was the thought and he was there and had the capability of doing that and didn't do that in response to the delusion, I would say that was not based upon a delusion.
Did you review emails sent by the defendant to Genevieve Torrez the night of the murder?
Yes.
And what was basically said in those emails, and how did that impact your opinion?
Well, let's get to it.
I'll give you some time to find them.
Yeah, I got it. Just the email that night. The emails that night?
Yes.
Okay.
You reviewed all the emails, though, correct?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah.
And while you're finding that, in your review of all of the emails, did you find any evidence of psychosis?
No. So the email Wednesday, January 7th at 8:27 p.m., he says, "Mom, we'll be by to drop off the last $100 before you all close. LOL, haha, thanks for everything, and we are a part of St. Paul's now."
Okay. And what was the next email?
The next email was, "I will be there in the morning to give you the last $100, and that was 10:25 p.m.
And how did these emails impact your opinion?
Well, it just told me that he's in the here and now. He's talking about the $100. He knew that he needed to pay the last $100. And he had earlier gone to St. Paul's Church. He got the paperwork from St. Paul's Church, and he says, "Now I'm a member of St. Paul's Church." So again, that didn't go against anything of reality for me. So that again told me that he was in the here and now. This was only a couple hours before this happened. And then at 10:25, he said, "I'll be there in the morning to give you the last $100. This is not a psychotic thing. This is not I'm the Pope now and I'm the devil, people out to get me, or any kind of thing like that. It says, "I'll be there in the morning to give you the last $100.
Did you review the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office police reports from January 7th at around 11 a.m. when the two Hillsborough County deputies went to St. Paul's Church and did their Baker Act evaluation of the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Did you review the depositions of those two officers, deputies Rizzo and Hallberg?
Yes.
What about that encounter with the two Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies at St. Paul's Church during their Baker Act evaluation was significant to your opinion?
Well, the whole thing, because, as a psychiatrist, having worked in the ER, And we had a lot of interaction with law enforcement, because law enforcement is a lot of times the people that initiate Baker Acts. Then we ultimately are the ones that give the yay or nay to the Baker Act. So they're trained in doing that. And also, John has had a history of being Baker Acted.
Improper bolstering.
Overruled. John also has a history of being Baker Acted by the police. So, it's not that they are competent sometimes and not competent other times. But when I looked at those interactions that they had documented, it looks like they talked to him for an extended period of time. And they actually used information that the attorney had given them to question him. It wasn't that they just went in there cold. They actually asked him relevant questions, and he gave them logical answers. So for me, that was very significant.
And how did that impact your opinion?
Well, it gave me the opinion that he was not psychotic at the time, because he's in the here and now answering these questions. Somebody that's in a delusion, when you speak with them about the delusion specifically, and they asked him specifically about what they were told from the attorney, he didn't all of a sudden fall into the delusion, because sometimes, like you guys have heard, and it's true, if somebody's delusional and they're psychotic, they might be able to do other things and look normal, because it's not in the delusion at the time. But if they're asked about the delusion, they will go automatically into it, and you can't talk them out of it. And in these particular situations, it's almost like the policemen are really trying to get at that. They heard some of the things that was said about being God and that kind of thing, and he didn't fall for that. He didn't do that, and like a psychotic person would, they would fall right into that and start talking about that and ranting and raving over it. And he didn't. He gave logical answers to each one of those questions, to the point where the officers were like, okay, well, he may be saying some odd things, but it isn't delusional to the point where he's under the possibility of hurting himself or someone else. And that's the basis of the Baker Act. You don't just Baker Act people because they sound weird, because a lot of people would get Baker Acted then.
Did you ask him about his interaction with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He said he doesn't remember anything about that.
Did you review the deposition of Father William Swingroves, the priest at St. Paul's Church?
Yes.
Okay. And what was important in that deposition to your opinion?
Well, Father Swingroves, obviously, again, he had some interactions with people that have mental health issues, because there are people that have a lot of religious delusions. So they do have a tendency to maybe see some, and he had talked about that a little bit. But, when John told the father that he thought he was the Pope, the father automatically asked him, "You don't really think you're the Pope, do you?" Somebody that's psychotic would say, "Yes, I am. Why are you questioning me?" I mean, they would go into that a little bit. But John didn't. He said, no. That's not the case. I'm not the Pope. I know that. So he was able to come out of that. It wasn't anything that he was fixed on. Again, that's not a psychotic situation. If they're not fixed on it, that's not a delusion. So again, that was supportive of or sort of an evidence to support then what I ultimately came to the conclusion about. So the father actually said that. It's not like he was so set on the ideation. So the father actually said that, and he was there with him.
Objection, hearsay, we'd ask for curative. Overruled.
Is that all you want to say about that, Doctor?
Well, I mean, the father had said something else about how he determined that, he felt that John was in the here and now. I don't know if I'm able to say that.
Was that important to your opinion?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So...
he said that if they're willing to listen to what you're saying, now this is him talking about having talked with other people that have psychosis.
Objection, sustained.
Let me ask you about the interaction between the defendant and his father and mother that evening.
Yes.
The evening of January 7th. Did you talk to the defendant's mother?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you also review her deposition?
Yes.
And you reviewed the deposition of the defendant's father?
Yes.
So, can you describe what the defendant's demeanor was like that evening, and what his interaction with his father and mother was like that evening that was significant to your opinion?
They both said, his mom he was living with her prior to all this happening, to a couple days prior to this happening, and she was under the impression that John was experiencing
Objection, non-responsive.
a reawakening, like turning over a new leaf kind of thing. So that's how she was seeing when he was talking about religion. That's how she was seeing it. And the way he was acting was also similar to that. He was trying to participate in the prayer, and he was talking about religion a little bit more, but it was not anything to the level of delusion or anything like that. I mean, this was definitely more than what John had been talking about in the past, because he was not a religious person at all prior to this. So that was the one thing that his father was a little bit wondering about, because his father is not religious. The mom is religious. So the father was a little bit wondering about what was going on here. He was a little bit frustrated. I think John had been taking it a little bit far with that Bible, because it was his wife's Bible, and his dad was protective over this object because there had been some history of John destroying objects. So this was a family heirloom. So his dad wanted it back, and there was some issues there. And he was getting a little frustrated that John was a little bit fixated on that. So I believe at one point in time, his father was going to call the police or call to have him Baker acted or at least evaluated, and John had grabbed the phone and ran with it because he was on probation, didn't want him to be called.
And how did that impact your opinion regarding insanity or sanity?
Well, he's in the here and now again. He knows where he is. He knows the possible consequences of the police being called, even though he was also being religious. So it was all in the same kind of thing for me.
Okay. Did you review collateral data regarding what the defendant did next when he went to his friend Noemi's house that night?
When he went to Noemi's house, he had been texting her. He was actually supposed to pick up her child, I think, the next day. They had been friends, and he was texting her, and he was sort of hitting on her. And he had confirmed that when I was talking with him, that he was hitting on her. And he went over to her house. It was her impression that he wanted to stay with her, and she was sort of hiding from him because he was sending some odd text to her that she was a little bit worried about.
And did she let him in the house?
No, she didn't let him in the house.
All right. And how did that interaction impact your opinion?
Judge, objection may be approached.
Yes.
Can you just generally tell me, how this interaction with Noemi impacted your opinion about whether or not he was psychotic that night when he was texting her and at her house?
Well, it didn't tell me that he was psychotic. It just told me that he might have wanted a new place to stay.
Okay. Did you review the St. Petersburg Police Department reports by Officer Vickers?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also review the St. Petersburg Police Department reports by Officer Sousa and Officer Gillis and their depositions?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that, since I've asked that question specifically, you reviewed all the depositions in this case, correct?
I reviewed all the depositions and all the police reports.
And as far as the depositions of Officer Sousa and Gillis, who were involved in the pursuit of the defendant, was there anything contained in those documents and their reports that helped you form your opinion in this case?
Well, yes. Again, I mean, in those, Officer Sousa, his was regarding the drive, and that was showing goal-directed activity.
What goal-directed activity?
Well, that he was specifically driving away from the scene, and then whenever he found that the police were then coming to get him, then he sort of came back around, almost hit one police officer, and he didn't need to be in that direction, but he sort of went in that direction and then went back out to the side of the street as to not hit any other cars because he was going in the wrong direction. So again, that's all goal-directed activity. That people that are psychotic can drive, but they can't drive like a race car driver. I mean, they're going to drive ahead, that type of thing. They don't think that fast like that. But this was the evidence to me that he was thinking quickly on his feet. He knew he was being apprehended or at least pursued by police, and he was trying to get away.
The fact that he was trying to get away, how does that factor into an insanity evaluation when you're considering the prongs of insanity?
Well, that somebody knows what they're doing is wrong, and they know the potential consequences of their actions. I mean, the police are pursuing him, they know that there's something wrong, and they know that police are attached to some legal consequences.
And if someone knows that they're doing something wrong under the law in Florida, are they insane?
No.
Did you review the video of the defendant at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office after his arrest?
Yes, I did.
Based on your training and experience in your review of the video, was the defendant psychotic while he was at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office?
No.
Why not?
Because there are no psychotic ramblings. You know, when somebody is psychotic, and in this kind of high-intensity case, high-intensity situation, you can look at multiple different things.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Judge.
But it's reversible error if Mr. Jonchuck will get convicted for the jury to hear about him asking for a lawyer or not.
Yes.
Okay, there was a sanity case called McGaw a long time ago that says that. So you can't do that.
Yes.
And also, if you were to testify about what he didn't tell the police, it would be a comment on his right to remain silent. And
Yes.
if you were convicted, it could very well come back.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure, because you're a psychiatrist,
Yes.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I understand. I've been extensively talked
Educated by
to.
Mr.
Yes,
Bowen.
he's been on me since before this even happened.
Okay, we're ready. Let's bring him back.
Crossing the race line, we'll bring him in. them. Got it. He's in the jury box and seat, Your Honor.
How did the defendant appear in the video that you reviewed while he was at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office?
He appeared in the here and now. He was, when somebody's psychotic, at times they'll look like they're looking at something else or talking to something else. In this particular case, John had been talking about paranoia type of things. They might be looking that way. They might be looking paranoid. They might be looking anxious. And that was not what was going on here. He was speaking with the detectives. He was in the here and now doing that, able to give his name, address, what his age was, where he's working. That is all in the here and now. It was not delusional content. He was answering their questions. He had denied using any substances and said 8th grade was the last grade he attended. These are all appropriate responses. These are all correct. These are not the Pope in a delusional construct of wanting to go to Babylon or anything like that. There was not anything being said like that. He's asking about, food, asking about, actually, can I have some water real quick? Where am I going? So he's there. This is not somebody that doesn't know where he is. Even at one point, he gave a little bit of his personality style out there to the one officer who would ask, hey, where's that address?
Improper.
Where's that address around? Just so I know where it is. And he's like, do you not know how to use a computer? That's not something that God would say, the Pope would say, the devil would say. That's something that John would say. And he said that. So, again, there was a lot of stuff. He's talking about his job, and he's saying he did a hell of a job at his new job. He's talking about the job, talking about the boss, talking bad things about the boss there. That is all in the here and now, has zero to do with what's going on or any of this psychotic delusion. You can't pop in and out of it like that. It's not like that. That's not how delusions work, especially not ones that are the basis of a murder.
And you spoke with Michelle Kerr, the mother of Phoebe, right?
Yes.
And you also read her deposition.
Yes.
And when you spoke with Michelle Kerr, that was one of your collateral interviews, correct?
Yes.
Did Michelle Kerr ever report to you that she saw symptoms that, based on her description, would appear to you to be psychotic symptoms?
No.
During her entire relationship with the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Did the defendant make a statement to his mother 3 days before the murder that was significant to your opinion?
Yes.
What was that statement?
I get it right.
What were the statements that he made to her on that day?
This was like 3 days before, I believe. This was on the 5th, yeah. I'm taking my child and fuck you. You're a piece of shit and I'm never letting you see her again. So fuck you. You're not taking my daughter. I'm taking my daughter and you'll never see her again. I'm going to do something to fuck your whole life up.
Now, did he make other statements to her as well, in addition to that?
Yes.
Okay, what other statements did he make to her?
Well, preceding that, he had given her some impression that he had taken on the persona of her mother, which was someone that had molested her sexually when she was a child. And he had said that she did not molest her, that her father and grandfather molested her.
And how did all of these statements 3 days before the murder impact your opinion?
Well, that told me that he wanted to hurt her.
And who was Tasha Clare?
Tasha Clare was a friend of John's. I believe that she had a son that Phoebe and him played together.
Did the defendant send an email to Tasha Clare 2 days before the murder?
Yes.
Was that email important to your opinion?
Oh, yes, it was.
All right. Could you tell us what that email says?
Do you want me to read the email?
Yes.
Yes. So this was January 5th. Hey Tosh, just wanted to let you know I'm trying to make amends and hope this gets your attention. I'm not a bad person, and you and Keith were really good to me, and you gave me a Merry Christmas and Thanksgiving that year, and I'm very sorry for being such a dickhead and saying mean and horrible things. I was an addict, whether it was my prescribed or my beer or other stuff. I'm so dry not even having to take my blood pressure medication. And all my bad choices and harsh words were when I was under the influence of something. I would really like to regroup one day. I'm a chef at a restaurant now and canceling the lawsuits and everything and getting off Social Security in February. No more free shit. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I would like to do something with you guys soon. My treat. You're special, y'all are both amazing people, and what you do for that little boy is amazing. And never forget that. Keep your chin up because you're a good girl, but you know that. I finally understand what it is to be taking advantage of never by you guys. Well, let me see, maybe I messed that up. I finally understand what it is to be taking advantage of never by you guys, but by others. And we can't pick our families, but we can choose our friends. And I want you and Keith as one again. It's amazing what life brings when you give up your addictions and what it's like to be normal and balance a checkbook. And you guys were ones that inspired me. Best regards.
That was 2 days before the murder.
Yes.
Is Tasha Claire a real person?
Yes, she is.
Did you review her deposition?
Yes.
And she had a relationship, or not necessarily intimate relationship, but she had a relationship with the defendant. They were friends.
Yeah, they were friends. Her son and Phoebe played together.
All right. And so is there anything based on the information you know about Tasha Claire in that email that would suggest to you that that email was psychotic in nature?
No, that email is not psychotic in nature. Again, this is the turning over a new leaf. The making amends is the title of the email. So it goes all with that.
Do you have an opinion, and I think you've told us this before, but I just want to end on this note. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the defendant was insane at the time of the murder?
I do have an opinion.
And is that opinion to a reasonable degree of psychiatric certainty?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Mr. Jonchuck did not meet the criteria for insanity at the time of the offense.
I'm aware. That's all I have.
Cross?
Judge, can we have a short recess? We need to grab the TV and get some things set up.
Sure. How long do you need?
10, 15 minutes?
Okay, so we'll be in recess until 10 after 10. Thank you.